Hi. Thank you, everybody. I'm glad you're still here. I know everybody's anxious to get to their evening activities, but I appreciate you listening to our story. Axogen is a company focused entirely in the area of peripheral nerve repair. We are recently a public company through a merger that we completed at the end of September, and now have 3 commercially available products in the area of peripheral nerve repair available in the United States. The market size for peripheral nerve is large, but relatively untapped today. We estimate that it's $1 billion or greater. We are today the only company focused in peripheral nerve repair and continuing to expand the data to show the benefit of using these regenerative medicine options. We have put together a team that I think has the talent to get us there and make us that high-growth revenue company. So just simply, we've been talking a lot about regenerative medicine today, but I want to put a little bit of a perspective on it to say, think of regenerative medicine as the combination of scaffolds and cells. You can do those in different ways. We today are looking at peripheral nerve repair with the scaffolds, relying on the body's own cellular structure to repopulate those scaffolds. So just a little bit about peripheral nerves. Think of them at the most basic form as the wires of the body. What the signals that traverse across the nerves allow your muscles to work, allow you to feel sensation, and what we're looking at is when those signals are interrupted. So predominantly today we're looking at when the nerve is cut. Obviously when the nerve is cut, nothing happens. The only way that that can be repaired is a surgical repair. They do not, at this point, remodel on their own. The surgeon tries to bring the 2 nerve ends together. Nerves do not heal well under tension. It has to do with the vascularity of the nerve and cutting off the blood supply. So if there's any kind of tension on the nerve, then there's no regeneration. So that leaves the opportunity that says we need to put something between those nerve ends that allow regeneration to occur, to bridge that gap, but to essentially allow that regeneration. There are some things that are the goal for the surgeon. The surgeon, of course, wants to get functional recovery back. He's trying to get the sensation and muscle function back for that patient, but also trying to prevent pain, because a lot of these injuries end up with chronic pain issues associated with a complication in the signal or a tangle or scar in those nerve fibers that can cause, again, chronic pain for the patient. Historically, it's been autograft as the solution. So obviously, autograft means that patient is giving something up. That nerve that they're taking was doing something. That's a little bit of a negotiation between the patient and the surgeon. What are you willing to give up to fix this? The most common is the sural nerve. It runs up the back of the leg. They would take that out. It provides sensation for the foot. If that's going to allow you to use your dominant hand, it's probably a good trade-off for you as a patient. On the other hand, if you're an avid skier, you can't feel your feet, it's hard to ski. And so there are decisions that everyone needs to make in saying, are you willing or interested in doing an autograft? In addition, for the surgeon in the hospital, there's lots of complications. There's the risk of all of the surgical site infections, chronic wounds that may occur, as occurs with any surgical site incision. And so what we're saying is, let's get the same sort of recovery that you can get with the autograft, but without all the morbidity and cost of this autograft procedure. Traditionally, that's been a good opportunity. In other autograft situations, if you can solve those problems and still provide the same outcomes, the market has moved quickly. And we've looked at that model to say we see that's the transition that will be available for us. There was an alternative that was developed about 10 years ago. These are hollow tube conduits. Essentially, it provides a protective environment for the nerve to regenerate. The nerve ends are tucked into this tube. The mechanism of action is that a fibrin bridge forms between the 2 nerve ends and provides a rudimentary scaffold for the regenerating nerve fibers. But there's some problems with that, and the most notable is that fibrin breaks down. And so if the bridge breaks down before the axons get across or the regenerating nerve fibers get across, of course, there's a total failure. And so the longer the gap between the nerve ends, the higher the risk of having a total failure. Total failure in this case is no protective sensation. You can put your finger on a hot stove, be burned, and not feel it. So that's what total failure means in this scenario. And looking at previous clinical data, 34 to 57% of these conduits totally fail in gaps longer than 5 millimeters. So clearly, still a clinical need for a different alternative. Axogen's product portfolio meets the needs of surgeons in these injuries. The first product, the advanced nerve graft, is a decellularized human nerve allograft. So again, it is human tissue that is decellularized, preserving all of the microarchitecture of the nerve. So this is preserving both the endoneurial tubes, which are providing physical guidance for the regenerating nerve fibers, also preserving the microvasculature to allow revascularization of this allograft. It allows the body's healing process to occur. In other words, nerve fibers regenerate across the gap. Cells from that same nerve repopulate the nerve. You go back and do a biopsy at a later date, it would be the patient's own nerve. From a processing standpoint, some very unique intellectual property. It's obviously, allografts have been around for a long time. Why not nerve? Well, it has to do with that decellularization process. Decellularization was very difficult to preserve that microarchitecture. It essentially turned the inside to mush, and that didn't work. Dismal results previously. In addition was an identification that within the extracellular matrix are certain proteins that are inhibitory to the regenerating nerve fibers, essentially created stop signs for the regenerating nerve fibers. We go in and selectively remove those so that we do not have the stop signs and have the regenerative capacity of the scaffold. Ultimately, also, we terminally sterilize it, just recognizing that the risk of infection is always there, and we want to provide an implant that does not have that. We complement that product with the Axoguard line. Axoguard is a porcine extracellular matrix. The Axoguard connector on the right there is for those gaps that are 5 millimeters and less, provides a very good conduit for the short gaps with good outcomes. We use the unique properties of this material to also wrap nerves so that we can protect the nerve from soft tissue attachments in the surrounding environment. Our primary market today is in trauma, and in trauma there may be plates that are put on bones adjacent to the nerve. All of these things can create fibrotic or scar tissue that once the nerve is scarred down causes chronic pain. Excuse me. We're trying to prevent that chronic pain by eliminating the scar. So in the end, we have a full portfolio of products that have been used in combination. They can, in any surgical situation that our sales representative walks into, they can use either the advanced nerve graft, the Axoguard nerve protector, and or the Axoguard nerve connector. They can be used in combination or on native nerve. Again, the market opportunity is large. We focus in trauma today. This has been a challenge for our team because nerves are actually everywhere in all types of surgery. And for the surgeon, they may be the shiny white things that are in the way that they try and retract out of the way and sometimes injure, and they're iatrogenic injuries, or there can be clear cases where they need to remove it, as in surgical oncology. Today, we've decided to focus in this $1 billion space of traumatic injuries, but we see opportunity to expand the market into oncology and prostate cancer and in breast reconstruction. From a competitive standpoint, the field is predominantly autograft, so we're competing against a technique versus companies at this point. There are 3 companies that sell conduits in a relatively small niche part of the market. Integra, Stryker, and Synovus sell those, but we really see the biggest opportunity to move is transitioning from autograft to a better alternative. The concentration of accounts for us is relatively small, allowing us to build a relatively small sales force to reach the surgeons that we need to educate about this new alternative. Our sales and marketing approach is fairly standard for the med tech surgical world, so our approach is that same selling model. We have a hybrid model of direct reps and independent distributors. We're working with them to expose them to data. That's really what will change the surgeon's habits through educational conferences, presentations, training, and expanding clinical evidence. From a clinical evidence standpoint, we're working predominantly, again, in that trauma space. I'll talk about the Ranger study real quickly, but starting to build data in some of those developing markets. This data just came out on the Ranger study. It's actually being presented starting tomorrow at a hand conference, as well as coming out in a publication in Microsurgery. And essentially what it's showing is that we are comparable to what you see with autograft in all types of nerve injuries, far superior to what you're seeing with those conduits that are available, and pointing out in the conduit market where they're used today and showing those high failure rates. We've had 100% recovery rate in that 5 to 15 millimeter gap. Overall, an 87% successful, clinically relevant recovery rate. Very outstanding results. We're showing strong, consistent results with a relatively small team, still continuing to expand our sales team, but showing 59% growth year on year through the first 9 months. Again, capitalized as a public company now, and feel that we're well positioned to continue to grow this space. Any questions?
Could you compare with Integra product?
So the Integra product is a hollow tube conduit. It is, just like we talked about there, made of type 1 bovine collagen. Works very well in short gaps. Does have some limitations in that it's relatively rigid, so it cannot be used around joints or in confined spaces, but in those very short gaps works well. When it starts to get longer, they start to see the same type, they have the same mechanism of action as all of the conduits do, and they start to see the same types of failure rates.
So as your conduit as well, right?
Our conduit, we limit the length to 5 millimeters, just for that reason. It's not that we can't make it longer, but when we see the poor clinical results, we just felt that we have a much better alternative that's, frankly, economically a good choice for the hospital and the patient.
And longer is only allograft.
It's only allograft. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.